Hi. I don't really know how this is going to go, but we're going to try this so that everyone can see. This video is going to show you a little bit more inside of what Lucy's care is or involves, and mostly because those of you who are asking through someone else and are not calling and asking me direct, and when you do call and ask direct or send messages or whatever, it's a lot to explain. So I'm gonna go from the beginning and explain exactly Lucy's condition. So today is June, and June 9th. Happy birthday, Auntie Sarah and Bruno. Today's Bruno's second birthday. Lucy's diagnosis date is August 19th, 2020, which was interesting. She is officially diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and she tested positive for antibodies of Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disease that I also have. And originally her symptoms were she lost a lot of weight. She did have an attitude change, which most of you know that Lucy was very happy. She's a happy child. She cared about everyone and was involved in everything and had a normal 8-year-old energy. And then it took a turn and she sat on the couch a lot. She hardly lifted her head. She slept a lot, and she just was sad all the time. So I thought that it was Corona maybe causing depression or whatever it may have been, and took her into the pediatrician, which then they gave her a urine test and sent us home. And before she got in the pool when we got home, and before she could even finish out her activities, she had to get out and we had to go to UC Davis because the doctor had found proteins and her sugar level was over 300. So they sent us immediately to UC Davis, which we are lucky enough to live close to it. And if we hadn't moved, it would have been far, and we still would have ended up going somewhere far, whether it was UCSF or Stanford, which my experience with Stanford isn't too pleasant, so I wouldn't have been happy with that. But anyways, her treatment so far is going well. Lucy has a insulin pump. She uses a Tandem, which is a tubed insulin pump, and she uses a Dexcom CGM, which is a continuous glucose meter, and they work together. So when her numbers are low or are dropping or rising, the insulin pump will try to catch it and then make adjustments where it's needed. And so far, things are going better than finger pricking. Finger pricking is when she checks her glucose with her fingers and the actual blood drop. And her CGM measures the subcutaneous fluid. It's a little bit different, but they're close to being the same. And injections still happen because there are issues with pumps. There are days that, especially recently, now that it's getting hot, there are days where the insulin seems to stop working if it gets too warm, or it's been in the pump too long, or she may have hit, we might have missed some kind of air bubble or something like that. And then in that case, she still gets injections, and it's still okay. Injections seem to work faster than the insulin pump, but it is what it is. Her average blood sugar, or her A1C is 5.9, and when we started it was 9.1, and her average, well, what we want her blood sugar to be is 80 to 120, and they have her set at a goal for 110, which personally I have a goal of 100. 110 is fine. Anywhere between 100 110. I am working to be a little bit bolder with insulin, and that is my choice, which I can explain later. But in the beginning, I was very afraid of insulin. Insulin scared me because a single drop of insulin could send her into a rapid low, which could change everything. So that is scary. And when they give you training for, so you're in the hospital for 3 days, they give you training. Thankfully, I did very well in training, so we didn't have to stay the normal schedule. They let us go home a little bit early, but you go home with what they've taught you in 72 hours, and now you're in charge of their care. You're now the doctor, the nurse, the healthcare provider, and advocate, and it's hard. 8 months in, and I still am a little confused, lost at times. The research is not out there. I mean, research is out there and it's going, but for the common person like me, there's a lot of, let's say, YouTube videos and information for adults with type 1, but there's not as many for children. And I feel like in my situation where I'm like, okay, well, now I have a 9-year-old with type 1. How can you help me? And why is this happening? And I go to look at it and nobody else has it, so I don't know where to start. So for instance, Lucy's losing her hair, and originally her thyroid measurements were very high, so they attributed it to that, and it got better, and then it got worse. So now we have chopped off her hair and trying to put it back together, but they're not sure why. It could be because of the insulin. She could be a vitamin deficient, but they have done tests and have no answer. So those kind of things, like, it would be nice for someone to share that information. So I guess I'm sharing it. The other thing is when it comes to food, there's a lot of measuring of food. Everything has to be accounted for. Otherwise, the amount of insulin that I give her will be wrong. So, and then come to find out after being 6 months in, you still have to give insulin even though there are no carbs. So if I give her bacon and eggs and there are no carbohydrates, she still has to have a small bolus, which I didn't know, and apparently I was doing it wrong. So, yeah, there's a lot of information and a lot to take in. I am not good at math in any way. Google Assistant is my friend. We have a special scale that weighs out everything for her, home cooked. Unfortunately, when you go to like a diner or a restaurant, you're totally playing a guessing game. And actually, 90% of the time we're giving her a meal, it is a complete guessing game, because 90 carbs or whatever for a normal person processes different for Lucy, but then it also processes different for Joe next door. So there is no exact. She has a carb ratio. I give her the amount of insulin she needs based on her carb ratio, which changes because she is a 9-year-old going through hormone changes. So we have a lot of ups and downs right now, which began while she was still in school, which ended up having us pull her out of school because we just couldn't predict what was going to happen, and it was out of our control. Another bit of the food is Lucy cannot process milk without having it rise her glucose, which the doctors are not sure of. They are doing their own research to try to find out a connection of some way that this works. I tried to pre-bolus it. I tried to over-bolus it. It doesn't matter, no matter what we've tried. And we've tried every milk. So we just gave her the Simply version of almond milk, and so far that has gone well. She hasn't had any complications for it. So now that she can have a bowl of cereal with milk, which, by the way, diabetes and cereal don't go together, and I found a keto cereal that she can actually process, as you hear my son. So she can have cereal now, and we don't have it all the time, but she missed it, and she can have cereal with a little bit of milk, and we're having great success with that. But like I said, there was nobody to tell me that that was a possibility. The other thing is maltodextrin. Lucy cannot have maltodextrin. Maltodextrin makes her sugar go up really high for about 24 hours from the time she puts it in her body. And I've done some research, and it looks like maltodextrin does cause your glucose to go up, and some people just can't tolerate it. So we have cut that out. And we also are trying to cut it out of our bodies as well, because if it's not good for her, it's not good for us. Which it's in almost everything, so you have to really pay attention. Water. Lucy has to have a lot of water. Her blood glucose monitor, her CGM, doesn't work right without proper hydration. So we have to make sure that she is properly hydrated. Also, her insulin doesn't work well without being properly hydrated. So we work really hard on keeping her hydrated, which for an active 9-year-old, it's swimming season now, and luckily she drinks when she's, hot. So the summer does help, but in the winter it was constant reminders. She has a special game on her phone to help her remember to drink water. Water is really important. The downside of everything is Eric and I are very alone when it comes to caring for Lucy. I don't feel that anyone is confident enough to take care of her, so she's very much attached at my hip, and when she's not, and I am involved with Mary or one of the other kids, Eric fills in the gap, but there's no one else that can really do it. So hopefully, I know my mom is close. My mom is close to being able to fill in, I guess, if there was an emergency or something like that. I would feel confident with my mom and Noreen. Noreen's been doing a good job trying to learn all this stuff too, but it's hard. It's a lot to put on somebody. So Eric and I work pretty independently, and I don't know what else to do about that, but it's been 8 months almost, and we're still not done grieving. We're not done grieving the old Lucy. She is still her. She's very much her. She's the bravest girl I've ever known, but she doesn't have quite the freedoms at this point. At 9 years old, she doesn't have as quite the freedoms as she did before diagnosis. She can't just go into the cupboard and eat. She can't just go into, okay, go push stop, please. And right this minute, her pump just fell out. She snagged her pump, so now we have to fix that battle. As you can see, taking a few minutes to explain it to you, and we still have issues. But that is our life, and this is how it's going. But it is completely all over the place. It's extremely my thoughts. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner snacks take a lot more preparation and thought than just popping anything in the microwave or, going out to eat. Those kind of things are a little bit more complicated, and vacationing doesn't seem like it's in the near future. It's just a lot. We prepared to take a flight last month, and we're working out the logistics, and it's a lot. It's a lot to do, and like I said, she's only 9. We're only 8 months in, so we have a lot to learn, and she has a lot to get used to. Hopefully once she's a teenager and the hormones start to steady out. And the other thing is Lucy is still in the honeymoon stage, which means her pancreas is still technically making insulin. So some days she makes more insulin than she needs, and I have to, or based on what I give her in her pump. So I have to put the numbers down. So you have to constantly adjust the numbers between up and down, because if she's making more insulin, she doesn't need as much artificial insulin. And then on days that she's not making any, she becomes insulin resistant, which means I have to completely up her insulin intake and increase her water. It's just, there's a lot more things that happen. When she is on an insulin resistance day, we tend to go very low carb so that the minimum amount of insulin we're giving her has a chance to work. And yeah, I don't know if the science behind that. I don't even know if it's right, but it seems to work. It's the same thing of why she can't get sick, because if she gets a cold, which we know it happens, she has had a cold since we have had diagnosis, but we're talking about a one little cold, nothing major. We are not looking forward to anything major like a flu or anything like that, because the cold was bad enough and the insulin resistance was off the charts. And it's hard. It's really hard. It makes her feel worse. It makes her unable to recover as quickly. So COVID is a big deal. COVID is a very big deal, and it's frightening. So we all had the chance to talk about it, and we've all decided to do whatever's best to keep Lucy safe, and we will continue to do that. So if you have any questions, let me know and I can go from there. I wrote down notes, and this is basically the gist of the way things go. She wears a pump that she can disconnect to go swimming, so she still is very active. She can mostly have whatever she wants. We try to keep her under 150 carbs a day, just because the amount of insulin changes right now. She's not technically low carb. She doesn't eat like, I don't even know what the average carbs is. Actually, I do know. We're just gonna leave it at that. She is active as normal. She doesn't know what sport she wants to play. She is very shy when it comes to her insulin pump, and she doesn't like people seeing her have it. So she's not quite okay with being in a sport or any activity yet. She still loves to sing, and she sings all the time. Her Tourette's is actually much better, so I don't know if her growing out of it is helping, or if the Tourette syndrome was just exasperated by the fact that she had type 1 diabetes. I have no idea. But as I find more information, or I have new things to share, I'll let you know. All right, bye.